Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about what I believe are the coldest zodiac signs. And yes, this does apply and pertain to the sun, moon, and ascendant. Anyway, well, first off, I think really if you were to come down to it as far as what the coldest zodiac sign is, well, it could unequivocally very well be the zodiac sign Capricorn. Now, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and of course, the planet does have a very cold temperature. The temperament of Capricorn, of course, can be very cold. They can come across as very undemonstrative, sometimes even very cold or callous, even unfeeling. People that have a Capricorn sun, moon, or ascendant can come across that way, and they are, and also too, I mean, if somebody has Saturn conjunct the ascendant, like me, it could give off that impression too. Now the thing, of course, is I mean the sign that it's in has to be blended in a little bit. Of course, I mean if someone has Saturn conjunct the ascendant, but it's in Cancer, and somebody has a Cancer rising, of course you have to factor that into the equation. But if you say somebody has Saturn conjunct the ascendant, their ascendant is in Capricorn on top of it, then it's almost like a double whammy. You're getting almost a double emphasis of that cold energy. So a lot of that could be dependent on the sign that it is in, that is as far as that conjunction between Saturn and the ascendant. Now, the thing about it too is now, and going back to, I mean, to me, I have Saturn conjunct the ascendant in Taurus. Now, a prominent family member could stated to not to me, but to another prominent family member that I was very cold, at least in her opinion. Now, that could be where one can come across, because that's my Saturn conjunct the ascendant. I also have Capricorn. My ascendant is in the Capricorn Deacon and Dwad as well, so that could perhaps play a role in that as well. So anyway, but you really, I felt like, I mean, I guess if the prominent family member actually knew much about astrology, I could have said to her, well, I have my sun sign is Cancer, so in my inside, it could actually be very warm, nurturing, and empathetic, caring. But anyway, now going back to Capricorn, Capricorn is, of course, the opposite sign of Cancer. So naturally, it's not surprising their demeanor is the antithesis of that zodiac sign as far as Capricorn goes. Cancer, of course, can be very emotional, sympathetic, nurturing, and caring. Now they could just feel so strongly that they may actually feel others' pain. Cancer, sadly, though, can be known to be somewhat irrational. They could be dominated by their emotions and feelings. Capricorn, of course, the opposite, can be very rational. Now, part of Capricorn's coldness can be attributed to the fact, partly, because they are so dominated and engrossed as far as their career ambitions may go. Cancer may do everything but live vicariously through others' pain, I think, at times, and they feel others' pain as their own. Now, and and unfortunately, they pick up a lot on that emotional energy and those feelings, those moods of other people. Now, you talk about somebody that had a very little paradoxical personality. You talk about the late great renowned New York Yankees owner George Steinbrenner. He was known to be downright tyrannical, ruthless, and very domineering. He had a Capricorn ascendant, if I remember correctly, at 29 degrees, which, of course, the full culmination of the zodiac sign. Now, the thing about this is that this Capricorn facade that he had hit a very much softer and nurturing and caring Cancerian sun. Now, the thing about it is, I mean, he hired and fired manager Billy Martin a number of times, so it was almost like he was showing a lot of that cold energy by terminating Martin a number of times, but then you might have seen the Cancerian energy kind of come out maybe a little bit more by letting him come back in. But anyway, now, sadly, there was in a very negative manifestation, Capricorn can be cold in a very extreme manner. You look at sadly I had worked for a Capricorn Sun manager one time when I was at a retail outlet, And there was one time, sadly, and I've talked about this in at least one other video. Some of you may have heard this before, but I'm gonna incorporate in this video anyway. Again, for those of you that did not hear about this now, sadly, he epitomized very negative Capricorn energy. This was somebody. I remember one time, at least what I heard anyway, had happened. That somebody, I believe it was in the back stock room of the retail outlet store I was working at, had gotten electrocuted. I don't know if he was a trucker or somebody or some delivery person or what have you. And he was just on the ground. I don't know if he was comatose or what happened exactly, but he was in a very bad state. And what the Capricorn Sun manager proceeded to say was, he said, well, why don't you, he said to one of the employees, I believe, why don't we need to move him. We got work to do. I mean, and I'm not saying all Capricorns are that cold or that callous, but there's some, when it's really, when it really comes out negatively, sadly, that's how it can come out in a very negative manifestation. Now, anyway, another sign I see as being very cold, one of the colder zodiac signs, sadly, my moon sign is Gemini. Now, Gemini can be very averse to the emotional nature now, because Gemini is really, I mean, they are engrossed in their in diversity, their variety, and their activity. They don't like their monotony. They're a sign that they just don't have that time, because they're so dominated by doing so many different things. It almost seems like they're doing many things simultaneously at times. They are, it's a sign that they just, they don't take that time to get really involved in the emotional element or aspect of things. Their emotions can be very superficial and on the surface. Now, especially if you take a Gemini moon person, they experience manifold emotions and feelings, and they have their feelings or their emotions, but they are generally not sustained or prolonged or protracted. Gemini can be about being versatile on an emotional level, so to speak. I had a Facebook person and a Facebook acquaintance stated one time something about the Gemini moon. He said something about it being something like the fastest sign with the fastest planet. I believe when he was talking about the fastest planet, meaning, of course, revolution through the zodiac signs. And you're talking about the Gemini moon, is that he said something about that it has difficulty attaching itself and turns on a sixpence. Now, that really is hard to debate or dispute, because Gemini also, they're a sign, they are doing so busy doing one thing after another. They have the trouble and averse to very deep connections. They are trying to do one thing after another, and they may have just such a hard time becoming so deeply committed toward a thing, or even a person for that matter. Remember that Gemini is a sign that can have an anathema and an aversion to persistence, and sadly that can apply to matters of the heart too, because what happens is Gemini has to actually show some kind of persistence, I believe, to actually truly be really connected with somebody as far as the heart goes, and Gemini sadly may not have that. Remember, keep in mind that the zodiac sign Taurus often falls on the 12th house cusp in a solar or natal chart for Gemini. There's a reason for that. I mean, this plays a role. This is what Gemini is averse to. They're averse to the persistence and tenacity and the steadfastness. And a lot of, and Taurus energy can also be very loving and romantic, and they have the difficulty in showing it, because Taurus, again, ruled by Venus, as far as the romantic, the matters of the heart, the true love, it is very difficult for Gemini to express that energy. Now, another thing too is that Gemini sadly may actually have some kind of almost a hatred or animosity toward emotions, and they actually perceive them as a weakness, I believe. Gemini, with their adept, they could be constantly formulating ideas and articulating and verbalizing thoughts, but understand they are the sign. I mean, again, the Taurus thing being on the 12th house cusp, again, that is the 12th house is connected with limitations and restrictions. And again, going back to that, Taurus ruled by Venus can be associated with love, and Gemini may be disconnected. That's to some degree. Just going to reiterate that. Now, it's not, hold on a moment, people. Now, this is not to say that Gemini is disconnected from any kind of feeling. What Gemini, or as far as sensitivity goes, Gemini, however, they are more geared to the intellectual and mental needs of others. That's what they are sensitive to. They will provide you, they will give you information that you can assimilate. They will talk often about a lot of things you don't know. They're about diversification mentally. They'll talk about various subjects, and they will keep you downright very interested for a pretty good time, because they are not about monotony. They'll talk about various subjects, and they can indeed be very sensitive to your cerebral needs, so to speak. But anyway, and another thing too is that another thing about Gemini too, there's something about them which is tied into what I'm saying about what's tied into their coldness. A lot of this too, I think, is connected, attributed to the fact that Gemini may have a very difficult time in being pinned down on a mental level, and even physical to some degree. It's been stated, I mean, Sagittarius is where people, it's really, they're more about not being pinned down physically. Gemini more mental, but I think Gemini on a physical level to some degree, and I think it's very symbolic of them not just being pinned down in a certain relationship, can have very difficulty in doing so. I talked about this in previous videos, but I want to talk about it again anyway. I thought it was very interesting. I can remember a time back in the middle school, I had a Gemini moon and ascendant friend. Oddly enough, he was born on the same date in year as me, but he was born like about an hour later. He had a Gemini rising, and I have a later Taurus ascendant. Anyway, but back to this Gemini moon ascendant person, I can remember when, I guess they were just kind of, I don't know if it was a real fight or they were roughhousing with him, but there was a couple kids that were on top of my Gemini rising friend, and moon and rising friend, and he was like, and my friend was kind of like in a position where I guess you could say his chest and his stomach were like parallel to the ground, and he was like kind of in a push-up type, position on the ground. His face is facing the ground. What happened was he did some kind of quick jolt, a quick push-up maneuver, and it knocked the two people off of him, surprisingly. And what this is tied into, though, it's funny because that almost, to me, that symbolizes the Gemini way of not being pinned down. And it's really, even though it's more mental, Gemini is hard actually to pin down physically or mentally. And the thing, and as far as a commitment goes, and I think that was very symbolic of that Gemini energy. Now, another thing I want to talk about is that now when you look at Gemini too, I think what Gemini is about too, they are often about avoiding that deep commitment. Now you talk about a famous Gemini rising person, Charlie Sheen, is Gemini rising, and anybody that that's heard about him in the tabloids and everything, he's been notorious for his philandering ways and not really wanting to be pinned down, I guess, presumably to one person. What's interesting about him, though, his sun sign is completely different. Even though ruled by Mercury, he has a Virgo sun, which is more about being virtuous and scrupulous and etc., etc. But what it tells me is he has the Gemini rising and Sagittarius moon, so that's obviously overpowering that Virgo, at least in as far as his attitude toward relationship situations go. But I mean, Gemini, there's just something about them. They want that variety, versatility. It's almost like they're dividing their feelings up among all these different people in a number of instances, and that's why they just have a hard time concentrating all that feeling energy into one relationship situation, and they really can be unfortunately, I've even saying this would happen in Gemini moon, that they can be somewhat cold and to some degree, and sadly, because that is just how a lot of them can be. Now, anyway, Another sign I want to talk about is that the last, at least another sign I think is one of the coldest zodiac signs is Aquarius. Now, part of this, I believe, is to the fact that, okay, one of their planetary rulers is Saturn, just like Capricorn. And also remember that Aquarius corresponds with a winter, colder month. As far as, or at least as far as their period goes, in terms of the time when the sun is in that zodiac sign Aquarius, that period is part of the season winter. So anyway. But and then don't get me wrong, Aquarius can be very amicable, very friendly. They could have very strong humanitarian and selfless instincts. It's not like they're just like this completely uncaring people. However, Aquarius does possess certain detachment from others. As I've stated in previous videos, they can be very paradoxical. Aquarius can actually have a very strong proclivity to make friends readily and easily, but they can often be very difficult to know very deeply. They are often more about universal love as opposed to loving one person strongly. And the thing is, they are similar to Gemini in that respect, but there are different reasons associated with their detachment. The Gemini is just generally, it's just somewhat, they're superficial as far as their relationship connections go. But for Aquarius, it's more of the fact that they don't want their freedom and independence inhibited. Gemini is more about, they don't want things to get boring and monotonous for them. Aquarius is just the fact that they have to keep that certain distance. They have to have that freedom and independence in their life and have that certain detachment. So I think that's really kind of the difference as far as Gemini and Aquarius goes, as far as what I'm talking about in terms of their coldness, what they can have is their coldness in their connections. Now, Aquarius also likes to come and go and do what they want when they want to do it. They don't want to be dictated when to do this, when to do that. They certainly don't want to be smothered by others, so obviously it could make them very incompatible with the zodiac sign Cancer, who has that tendency or proclivity to play smother mother to others. Remember, they are in conjunct by sign Cancer and Aquarius, and there is obviously these signs get together, it can be an adjustment period for them. And even looking at Leo, the opposite sign of Aquarius. Now, they can, of course, they can be very compatible in a significant other opposite sex situation. However, even so, that there still can be disparities, I believe, in difficulties, due a lot of it because of Leo's very domineering energy and the fact that Aquarius does really thrive on their independence. So, and again, going back to Aquarius, they could be very unorthodox and non-conforming, and that could even apply and pertain to their relationships as well. Aquarius is ruled by Uranus as well, and Uranus I see can be connected with robotics, and hey, Aquarius can actually come across as robotic, and they again, being ruled by Uranus, of course, that is the higher octave of Mercury. Aquarius can be very cerebral and intellectual. They can often be about the formulation of innovative and ingenious ideas, as opposed to focusing on the emotional or element aspect of something, the human aspect of a situation or something. They are, I remember a prominent family member, oddly enough, she was the same one that actually referred to me as being very cold. She was talking about actor Richard Dean Anderson, who of course played MacGyver on the original MacGyver series. Richard Dean Anderson has an Aquarius sun and Gemini ascendant, and she told me that from some media outlet, whether it was something on TV or something she read, that he was referred to as being something like being difficult to know, or something similar to that. And it's no surprise because, I mean, Aquarius and Gemini can be very detached, and they can be very difficult to really get to know. Gemini can be very contradictory and hard to understand, and Aquarius, of course, can just have very strong detachment from others. So anyway, and what I want to get at too is, hold on a moment, people. What I want to get at too, I want to close with, there's certain things, and this is not to stereotype any of the zodiac signs I've talked about. If you take, it's always important, of course, to, as I talk about in my videos, you've got to look at the whole chart, not to isolate anything in it, and it applies to what I'm talking about as well. I mean, you take, like, if somebody that has a Capricorn sun, but if they have a Cancer ascendant, or like the moon in the first house, or a strong preponderance of water energy, they could have a lot more emotional energy, more feeling, be more empathetic than the typical Capricorn sun, moon, or ascendant. And that even applies with Gemini and Aquarius as well. I mean, again, and also conversely, if you look the other way, I mean, let's say you're talking about somebody, excuse me, that has a strong water dominant chart, and they have, I mean, let's say they even have their sun, moon, and ascendant all in water signs, or they have predominantly water, water influences in their astrology chart. I mean, that could even be modified to some degree, perhaps by progressions or certain aspects in their chart, such as somebody, again, going back to the Saturn conjunct the ascendant, or even the Saturn, let's say somebody has Saturn making an adverse aspect to their natal Venus, or even their moon. It might be a little bit more difficult for those people to show their feelings than otherwise indicated as examples. So those are some things to look at. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for what I believe are the coldest zodiac signs. And stay tuned next time where I'm going to be giving you my Libra April 2019 horoscope forecast, part 1 of 2. 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person astrologically speaking based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.